I'm Major Robert Rose, and thank you for joining me for this Operations Group TAC Talk on developing a decision support matrix. On 19 December 1944, the American Army faced a crisis at the Battle of the Bulge as the 28th and 106th Infantry Divisions were overrun. General Eisenhower asked General Patton how soon he could transfer over 100 miles of winter roads to join the battle. He said he would have 3 divisions to engage the enemy within 3 days. On the morning of 22nd December, Patton's Third Army smashed into the German southern flank and turned the tide of the Battle of the Bulge. How was the Third Army able to do this? The Third Army was able to act with such flexibility to the staff anticipating potential enemy actions and proactively developing plans to respond to them. On 11 December, Patton's G2, Colonel Oscar W. Koch, had identified the possibility of an enemy attack based on the buildup of their armor. In response, Patton told his staff to make a study of what the Third Army would do if called upon to counterattack the enemy. Patton was anticipating decisions based on enemy potential courses of actions, and his staff was developing branch plans. This enabled the Third Army to act with agility to a changing situation. You can do this too by using decision points to provide flexibility to your plans. At the National Training Center, the opposing force had developed a successful fighting method based in decision point tactics that maximizes their finesse and ensures they almost always outdecide rotational units. In 1997, Call published a valuable manual on how the OPFOR fight called Decision Point Tactics. It is Call's historically most requested manual. Today, I'll talk about how you can develop a decision support matrix to provide flexibility to your plan using decision points. We will start with the foundations of decision points in doctrine. According to Field Manual 5-0, a decision point is a point in space and time when the commander or staff anticipates making a key decision concerning a specific course of action. A decision point is associated to actions by the enemy, the friendly force, or the population, and is tied to a commander's critical information requirement, or CCIR. As defined in Joint Publication 3-0, a commander's critical information requirement is an information requirement identified by the commander as being critical to facilitate timely decision-making. CCIR consists of priority intelligence requirements, or PIR, and friendly force information requirements, or FFIR. According to Joint Publication 2-01, a priority intelligence requirement is an intelligence requirement that the commander and staff need to understand the threat and other aspects of the operational environment. PIR must be tied to a decision, or else it is just an information requirement and not a priority. You would develop initial PIR during mission analysis, but you must revisit them during course of action development and course of action analysis to ensure they meet the needs of your course of action as you add detail to it and the decisions you may have to make. You must develop an intel collection synchronization matrix that tasks assets to collect on named areas of interest, or NAIs, based on the appropriate times to make a decision. Building your decision support matrix will help you think through how you prioritize intel assets to make decisions based on the enemy event template and your friendly scheme of maneuver. The Call manual on decision point tactics states that without good reconnaissance, it would be impossible to execute decision point tactics. The collection plan on NAIs must have redundancy and it must be rehearsed. The other element of CCIR are friendly force information requirements. Joint Publication 3-0 states friendly force information requirements is the information the commander and staff need to understand the status of friendly force and supporting capabilities. FFIR drive decision-making. They are not just for situational awareness. They should be clearly defined reporting requirements from subordinate units that are tied to decisions. Good FFIR help focus staff on collecting required information and not on harassing subordinate units in the middle of a fight to provide information that is not necessary for decision. This example decision support matrix, which you can find on the Ops Group Mill Suite, consolidates CCIR, the decision support matrix, and a decision support template all in one fighting product. In the top left, we have CCIR. On the top right, a decision support template portraying the decisions in space. At the bottom is a decision support matrix with the decision points. As you list decision points, remember that decision points are not critical points. Too often, units fill their DSM with conditions-based critical points that have no associated branch plan if the conditions are not met. They also should not be battle drills. If there are certain actions that your unit will take no matter the context, you should put those in your tactical standard operating procedures. Conducting repetitions of the planning process should allow your unit to identify those standard decisions and codify them and decide who can make them. Listen to our Thinking Inside the Box podcast episode on delegating decision making for more on how to think through standard operating procedures on decision making. You should also think through decisions that take advantage of enemy vulnerabilities. The enemy also faces the fog and friction of war. After listing the decision point, list the PIR and FFIR involved in the decision. Some decisions are driven by different interactions of PIR and FFIR. For example, a decision on where to breach may be driven by the depth of enemy obstacles or by a friendly unit's loss of breach and assets, as can be seen with decision point 1 on this example. PIR also lists the associated NAI where collection assets will answer that PIR. Decisions should be thought through and complete. Often units simply list the maneuver portion of a decision without thinking through all the actions across warfighting functions that are required to enable that decision. If you change your axis of attack, what does that mean for your collection plan? Do you have to reposition artillery to a new PAA? Do you have to retask organize engineering assets? Do you have to reposition air defense, radars, retrans, command posts? You must think through all these factors or the decision will become desynchronized. Think about risk. There's a reason that you did not incorporate the decision in your base course of action. Why not? What risk are you assuming by making the decision, and how are you mitigating it? If you're employing the reserve, will you reconstitute it with a different unit? Again, thinking through risk will ensure the decision is complete and thought through. Why you should draft a decision support matrix during course of action development. During wargaming, you need to validate the decisions along with their support in CCIR. During wargaming, staff should flesh out the decisions and make them whole across warfighting functions. Finally, decisions must be rehearsed. Decisions must be talked through at combined arms rehearsals, with subordinate units discussing the actions they would take, displaying them on the map, and talking through any frictions that they identify in that decision.
Leads into your decision point 2. I see 2 criteria that could be met that would spark that. 1, a loss of a company's worth of combat power, either from Alpha Company or Charlie Company. Secondary to that is unable to breach with the 9 MICLICs and the 3 ABBs that we do have. Because if we try and take from 270 that has your alternate engineer capabilities or 118, that does not leave you redundancy. So I think those 2 conditions would spark the trigger to be met for your decision point 2, in which 118 would then not go through Red Lake Pass and in turn go through 270's AO.
Hey, 335. I'd like to add that to the and condition. I think that's a good point. You know, in terms of where we see combat power in 163, and then specifically the loss of a company and the loss of breach assets. I think stratifying that way is critical.
You can never predict the outcome of a fight, but as General Eisenhower said, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. By fully thinking through likely variants in the situation, you are more likely to have a branch plan that with minor refinements using the rapid decision making and synchronization process, you can more easily adapt to meet changes, turning an execution decision into an adjustment decision. Also, your subordinate elements will have prepared for flexibility and have an agile mindset to support rapid changes in execution. You can see on the example of DSM, we list higher headquarters decisions as well. This is essential in large-scale combat operations. Too often, units do not factor in higher echelon decisions, which may completely change the unit's tasks or even area of operations. With the division as the primary tactical echelon in multi-domain operations, all subordinate echelons need to be ready to execute the branch plans of divisions. Just remember the Third Army example. When Patton turned his army north, that plan had to be rapidly executed through corps, to divisions, to regiments, to battalions, to companies, and finally down to platoons. It was an incredible feat of flexibility. By building flexibility into your plan through a well thought out and rehearse decision support matrix, your unit will be able to out-decide the free-thinking enemy you will encounter at the National Training Center, or if called to, in combat. Thank you for listening to my TAC Talk on creating a decision support matrix. Be sure to subscribe to our TAC Talk series, as well as our podcast, Thinking Inside the Box. Again, I'm Major Robert Rose, train the force.